Everybody, welcome back to the Culinary Barn. It is the holiday season and I am feeling very festive here in the barn. I'm decorated up and I just returned from London for a little mini break and I'm feeling very inspired for the Christmas season. So I thought for the next couple videos we would do some holiday favorites together that are simple to make and some of which also double as a good hostess gift if you're going to someone's house for a party. And my favorite one as a hostess gift is granola. And I make several different varieties of granola, sometimes just depending on how I feel. I do have two of my more classic recipes already up on the website at enidgrace.com if you want to check those out. This is the one that I feel like making for the holiday season, so that's what I'm going to go with. And I will also, of course, post this recipe to the website as well. And this is really quite simple to make, and you can package it up beautifully, put it in a glass storage container or a nice cellophane bag tied off with some beautiful velvet ribbon, and it makes a lovely gift. But if you just want to make this for yourself and your family, it is great. It's a favorite with just milk or some yogurt, or honestly, just sort of eating it out of the container for a little snack is lovely. Like I said, easy to put together. Honestly, the hardest part of this will be browning some butter, but I'm going to show you how to do that. It's going to be part of a new series that is going to be called It's Easier Than You Think. When I do my classes here at the barn, one of the things I hear often from my students is when I'm showing them a basic technique, I often hear them saying, well, that's easier than I thought. So I thought I would do some close-up point of view videos for simple techniques in the kitchen, and I'll tag those as easier than you think. So look out for those in the coming weeks. But let's get started on this granola. So like I said, this was very much what I felt like making this morning. So this is a recipe that in essence is kind of untested, but I've made enough granola to know that I think this is going to be a winner. So pretty much pantry staples. We've got butter, some grapeseed oil, but you can use avocado oil or coconut oil or canola oil, whatever you might have on hand. Brown sugar, a little bit of salt, maple syrup, vanilla. I'm using vanilla bean paste, but you can use whatever vanilla you want. I've got a variety of spices, cinnamon, of course, and I'm going to do some cardamom and a little bit of allspice because those are my favorites. And then for some texture, we're going with hazelnuts. And then for a little bit of sweetness and our fruit component, I decided I wanted sultanas in this one. So the first thing we do have to get out of the way is the browning of the butter.
Place the butter in a small skillet over medium flame. Be sure not to walk away as this process doesn't take very long. Begin to gently swirl and stir the butter as it begins to melt. Large bubbles will form on the top. That's the water evaporating off. The butter will then turn foamy on top and will begin to take on a light golden color. Continue to swirl and stir until you achieve a light, even golden brown color. Be sure to remove it from the heat before it gets too dark, as brown butter will quickly turn into burnt butter and cannot be used.
All right, our butter has browned and it is beautiful and nutty smelling, and it's just beautiful golden brown. You really need to be careful that you remove it from the heat as soon as it just starts to get that just dark golden brown. Otherwise, you're going to cross over into burnt territory and then you're going to have to start all over again. So to our flavorful base of browned butter, I'm going to go in with maple syrup, good local maple syrup. And I'm doing about half a cup or so. Obviously, the exact measurements will be on the website. That'll just about finish off this bottle. You could, of course, use honey if you wanted to, but I like the smoky flavor of the maple syrup with the brown butter. I'm going to go in with some vanilla bean paste, but of course, you can just use regular vanilla. I like a lot of vanilla, so I'm going to be generous with a couple teaspoons of the vanilla bean, grapeseed oil, or any other neutral oil of your choice. And I'm just going to mix this around. And then my final little touch of sweetness into this is going to be brown sugar. And I like the dark brown sugar. It's got more of a caramely molasses flavor, which I think is nice in granola. All right, and just mix that into the warm brown butter just to slightly melt the sugar a little bit. What you don't want to do is put this back on the stove because then you'll end up over browning your butter. You can just let all these other ingredients melt in to the hot butter. All right, so that is our liquid base ready. And then in this big bowl, I've just got regular old rolled oats, nothing special, nothing fancy there. We need a touch of salt in here just to break up some of that sweetness. And then for spices, this is where you can have some fun. I, of course, have to have cinnamon in mine. So I'm going to go in just about 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. And then I was feeling cardamom and allspice this morning. That is this one. I love allspice and cardamom. I think they're very warming. So for the cardamom, I'm just going to do about 1/2 teaspoon. And then for the allspice, you can go overboard with allspice. So I'm just going to do about 1/4 teaspoon. I just want a little hum of it in the background. I don't want it to be overpowering. All right, spices in. I'm just going to give this a little mix with my hands just to incorporate. And then I want to get some toast on the hazelnuts. So these will actually go in during the baking process. And then the sultanas will mix in after the fact. And I like to leave the hazelnuts whole. I like that crunch in the granola, but if you want to chop them up or have them, by all means, you can do that. And of course, you can use any other nut that you like as well. So just toss the hazelnuts in there. And then you're going to just carefully pour this golden liquid over the top. Be careful because it's still going to be warm. And then just toss your oats and hazelnuts all around. Now I have the oven preheated to 350 degrees. And this all incorporated. And then I have a baking sheet lined with parchment paper because this is very sticky. So you don't want to do this without protection underneath. Otherwise, it's just going to be a sticky mess on your pan. Okay, there we go. Got everything all mixed together. It smells fantastic. All right, parchment lined tray. It's all ready to go. I'm just going to this out onto the tray. All right. And then just spread this out as best as you can into one layer, even layer. You don't want any overly thin spots, particularly near the edge of the pan, because those will likely burn a little bit on you or get a little bit too dark. So just try and keep it evenly in the center and just pat down any high areas and try and spread out the nuts a little bit as well. Perfect. All right, this is going to go into the oven for about 20 to 22 minutes total. I am going to check it at the halfway mark and crumble it up a bit, move it around and rotate the pan just so that we get even baking. So there you go. This is ready to go in the oven. All right, so this is at the halfway mark. So at this stage, I just want to move it around, especially any of the bits of granola that have gone off to the edges because they will brown quicker. So just to ensure we get even distribution of color, just give this a little toss around the pan and then back into another even layer. And this is going to finish up its last 8 to 10 minutes or so. But the smell in the kitchen is amazing. Okay, back into the oven. We're almost done. Out of the oven. It is beautiful, crispy, smells amazing. We've got even brownness and the hazelnuts are just perfectly toasted. So I'm going to leave this on the tray just for 5 to 8 minutes or so, just to cool down a little bit before I transfer it into the bowl and break it up if there are any larger chunks. And this is a great granola recipe because if you want it finer, you can really break it down into really small, almost like cereal. But also if you want it to be in bigger chunks, you can let it cool completely and then break it off into whatever size chunk you want. It's a great recipe to manipulate to whatever size that you want. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave this cool just for a few minutes and then we're gonna add the sultanas. Granola has cooled slightly, so I'm just gonna tumble it back into a mixing bowl. And you can see by using the parchment, it makes very easy cleanup of your pan later, instead of having any sticky caramelized bits to scrape off. So everything in. And like I said, I like it a little bit finer, so I'm not leaving it in bigger chunks. So I'm just going to let it be more like cereal. And then the last thing to go in will be our sultanas, and I'm just going to toss those in. And then from here, like I said, you can package this up for a beautiful gift in a nice like vintage preserving jar or a glass canister, or just a simple cellophane bag with a nice bow on top. But I am going to just serve up a little bit here. Mind my hands. It's just for me. A little bit into the bowl, like so. And I'm going to go with milk. But of course you could do yogurt. A little bit of milk. And dive in. I mean, obviously this is great for breakfast, but honestly, just for an afternoon snack is so good as well. It's so lovely. It's the perfect blend of spices. You get that little warmingness from the brown butter. It's not too sweet. You get the maple. It's perfect. Perfect, simple granola. Easy to make. Most of the items you already have at home. Make this for yourself or make this as a gift to give. Happy holidays, everyone.